Welcome to the Be My Guest podcast, where we interview inspiring entrepreneurs who share their stories and their insights and much, much more. You made a great choice tuning in today to the Be My Guest podcast. Welcome and enjoy the show. Welcome, guys, to another episode of Be My Guest. This is Frankie, and I have an incredible guest for you guys. Once again, as you know, we keep delivering these unique entrepreneurs with great stories, great insights. You guys are giving us great feedback. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you're watching this on any of our platforms, social media-wise, YouTube, etc. Also, if you want to be interviewed, you have a unique story, you have insights and things that you want to share, we would love to talk to you about the possibility of getting you on this show as well. Go to our website, BeMyGuestPodcast.com, BeMyGuestPodcast.com, and click on Get Interviewed so we can talk to you about being our next guest on this show. Without further ado, I'm going to bring on our next guest today, Mr. Keith Harrison. Keith, thanks for coming on to the show today.
How you doing, Frankie? Thanks for having me.
Oh,
excited to go through it.
Awesome. Well, Keith, you told me a little bit about your background, but I want everybody else to hear it from you directly from you. Tell everybody what you do, who you are, what you do, and how you got started.
So simple answer is my name's Keith. I like to refer to myself as Coach K because I slip on in the coaching when nobody's looking. I have been a salesperson for a long time back in the day. You remember when broadband was a thing? You used to have to hold like a big box and you went door to door. That's where I kicked off. And then grew up in Ireland, moved over to Israel about 10 years ago when Europe just kept going under. I think Germany owned Ireland at the time after the whole recession. That's sort of what brought me over here. High-tech central, as well as beautiful sunshine. Started off in technology sales for a couple of years. I don't really strike most people as a corporate kind of guy. So ended up in that commission-only closer space. Spent quite a few years closing, professional salesperson. The majority of the teams I worked on, they gave us leads, but then they sort of like said, here's a spreadsheet or here's a crappy CRM. As always with these things, I got super duper frustrated and started building my own CRMs. Little by little, I got better at what I do. I got Salesforce certified. I got other CRM certifications. And now I can pretty much build anything I want. That simply put removes 80-90% of the work that I have to do, make sure that I never miss a lead, and more importantly, my show rates are above 90% standard, and any professional salespeople out there knows that that's an extra 1 or 2 deals every single month. I build awesome CRMs for sales teams that really just want to make more money because, like I said to you before we kicked off, if your CRM's not making you more money, then what the hell are we all doing here?
Yeah. For some of those that are watching, what is a CRM?
So a CRM is supposed to be a customer relationship manager. Frankie, I'm telling you that because that's a technical term and I don't want to get into too much trouble here. In reality, however, the CRM is simply the technology that houses our sales processes, our sales operations. That's what it's supposed to be. And when you flip that little mindset, like who cares if you're using, a spreadsheet, a pen and paper, this is your process before the call. So you get a call booked, this is your process. You're doing the sales call, this is your data entry. You finish the call, this is your follow-up processes. You put all those processes on your CRM. It's just the technology that's used, as far as I'm concerned, to handle all of that.
Yeah.
That making sense?
Well, let me ask you this question. How did you get into sales in the first place?
How did I get into sales? I skipped one little part of my story, Frankie. That was when I grew up, my family was in the rag trade. That would be retail, clothing before internet. When I grew up and was in my late teens, early 20s, I started selling dried fruit, baklava, cakes, all these things in stalls, in like train stations, bus stations, events, that sort of thing. Early 20s, I bought an apartment. I thought I was a rich man. And you remember when I casually mentioned that there was some turmoil in Europe, and I said, to hell with this, I'm leaving Ireland, I'm getting out of here. Yeah, 2006, 2007, if everybody remembers, here's me selling luxury items. And all of a sudden, let's just say I got a very, very harsh lesson. 2008, when I finally picked myself back up, I said to myself, I'm going to go into sales. And I was very deliberate about sales because when you're selling for these companies, there's no inventory. Something goes wrong, something changes, no problem. Just get another offer, get another gig. You're not going to be left with 300,000 worth of stock that you kind of have to do something with. So that's kind of what got me into it. And what's kept me into it, I think you can appreciate the simple answer here. I'm free. I can do what the hell I want. I can live where I want to live. I can work when I want to work. I can turn on and off my calendar. Once you have a certain level of skill, you can get away with that now.
Yeah. So let's break that down a little bit because got a little bit of jamming a lot of information in there. So you sell virtually, right? That's what most people would call selling virtually. You're not going in person and selling anything, correct?
Correct. Last few
Okay.
years has been virtual
Okay.
selling.
What helped you understand that you could sell, or it could translate from in-person selling, if you will, or direct selling, however you want to call it, to doing this online? Are you doing it mostly by phone or Zoom, or how do you do it? And
I'm
tell us what made you realize that you could do that.
I'm doing it by Zoom. When I first left Ireland and came over to Israel, as I mentioned, I kicked off in high tech. And the entire technology industry here, like this is going back 10 years, even back then, before COVID, before everything, it was all virtual. It was inside sales. Inside sales is in you're inside the company. You're not outside sales. You're not going outside the company. And inside sales is all phone, Zoom. You're doing business with people globally. And then going from that into sort of that online commission only world, yes, you don't get the basics. Yes, you don't get the perks, but
Yeah.
that's where you get the freedom from. So I sort of went from that more corporate to that more freelance. And it's the same thing, except for you go from that employee to almost being like a self-employed person.
Right.
You've got your own little business, you're operating globally, you got to live by the sword, die by the sword. But if you're cool with that, I mean, the
Yeah.
life is awesome,
What
Frankie.
What was the first thing you started selling over Zoom?
First thing I was selling, I mean, you asked the question over Zoom. This is going back to high tech. So it was a company called WalkMe. I don't know if anyone's heard of them. They sold for over $1 billion recently to SAP, as far as I know. Um, yeah, I started in technology, and
What is it? Is it a software?
that was a software. If you remember back in the day, there was bubbles that used to come on the screen, click here, go here, do this, do that. They sort of pioneered it back then when you actually had to hard code it and it wasn't just click and go.
Mm.
So to answer your question, that's sort of the first one. And
And who
then
was the prospects that you were selling for that software?
that was B2B. So that was
Okay.
corporate to corporate.
Was it
So
small businesses or bigger businesses?
that specific one was more bigger businesses. Like the
Gotcha.
last
Okay.
6 or 7 years has been more the SMB.
Right, right, right. So when you were getting into sales doing that, you probably had to go through a lot of gatekeeping, correct?
I mean, a little bit. I
Okay.
I'm kind of I'm going to be honest about this one. I've always chosen companies that have had good marketing teams.
Right.
Now, that's not to say I haven't done outreach, because that specific one, I
So
mean, I was a
these
seller.
guys were providing appointments for you basically, right?
Back then, these guys were providing leads, some cold, some no good,
Right.
some wonderful, but I wasn't quite at the point where it was appointments. It was just, look, these are leads. They've clicked on something, they've indicated something, and you simply reach out all day, every day. Hey, I saw you clicked on this. You're looking for
Yeah.
something in particular, that kind of thing.
Let's go back to selling in person to going online and selling virtually.
Sure.
What was the difference that you found, other than the obvious, but as far as the sales techniques?
As far as the sales techniques, it's more mindset than sales techniques. Look, a process is a process. I'm going to do my best not to get super technical and geek out here, But as far as I'm concerned, when you're doing outside sales, as in person, what's your territory? What's your plan? Knocking on doors, for example. Here's 10 doors. You're going to knock on one, do your pitch, knock on one, do your. That's a process. And it's just keeping track of that process. When you're doing inside sales, same kind of thing. What's your process? I'm going to call this person. I'm going to update my CRM. I'm going to lock it. Next. These are simple processes. To me, it doesn't really matter what you're doing as long as there's a clear game plan. And I did mention mindset, Frankie, for a reason. Outside sales, to me, it was like playing a game of hide and seek. It's kind of how they explained it to me. There's 100 doors. Go knocking. Behind 2 of those doors is people that need what you got. Go find them. It's the same kind of thing when you move to setting. Like, we're not on to closing yet, just as a setter. It's the same kind of thing.
Yeah.
There's 1,000 leads, 2,000 leads, 5,000 leads. Guys, there's 200 people in there that desperately need what we got. Go find them.
Right.
And if you do that, it can be so much fun.
So now you're selling to smaller businesses. What's the typical product that you actually sell for these type of businesses?
The last few products before I was doing my own thing, selling CRMs, it was all in that coaching space. So marketing coaching, it's basically marketing coaching, different variations of marketing coaching. So companies, SMBs, one was more B2C, B2 consumers, but it's the same thing. It's just, what do you need? How can I help you? Listen to the person, find what they need, do the
and they would
process.
provide an appointment or a lead for you to call.
The last couple of years, I got a little bit into my comfort zone. Yeah, it was all booked on my calendars, maybe 20% reach out. The rest, just fill up that calendar. As long as you're killing, 20, 30, 40% close rates, you're good to go.
So a business would hire a remote sales team like yours, or I don't know if that's what you offer, but I know you do the CRM. We'll talk about that in a minute. But a business would hire a remote team to take the leads they got, and for your team to call and try to sell the offer. And then how are you guys compensated typically in this kind of environment?
So in this environment, this is what I'd consider the commission only space. And there's 2 ways to do it, like you just said. One, they build and manage their own team, in which case they hire reps one at a time. The other is when they go for a DFY, done for you service, and they actually take the whole service, and that service will build, manage, maintain the team. Either way you put it, generally, if you're on the setting side of things, the sort of what I was describing a few minutes ago, usually there's a small salary followed by a commission. And then on the closing side of things, it's all well and good to say, well, my calendar's full all day. Isn't this wonderful? It's 100% pure commission only. And if you don't hit that 20, 30%, if you don't know what you're doing, you're not going to be there more than a couple of weeks.
Right. And when you say 20, 30%, 20, 30% of conversion?
20, 30% conversion. Anything less than 15, one bad month, you're at the door.
Right. And I would imagine that the offers need to be what we would consider high ticket, right?
Reasonable. I mean, 5K, you consider that high ticket. 10 to 15 is better, but yeah, 5 and above make it worth our while.
Well, I think some people consider high ticket 3K and above, but it all depends on who you ask. But so you're saying 5K and above would be the ideal minimum,
in my experience.
Right. Okay. So a lot of the offers that you're selling are like marketing systems or opportunities or coaching or something like that along those lines.
I did a LinkedIn automation one as well. Let's not forget about that. I love selling technology. I'll choose it every single time over coaching, but I wanted to get into the coaching industry myself. And this is sort of where the story comes to a point. As a closer, in order to get really, really good at sales, like setter, closer, doesn't really matter. If you want to get really, really good at this, it's all about systems. It's about improving your systems, optimizing your systems, documenting your systems, putting AI in your systems, getting better at each one of those systems. And I answered your question earlier, what's a CRM? In my world, a CRM is the technology that houses those systems. So it was sort of a natural development for me, getting better at selling to getting better at CRMs.
Yeah. So the sales team would need definitely a CRM in place, and that way the company and the sales team can kind of communicate and see where everybody's at, where they stand, etc. And so you, it sounds like you went from providing the service of sales for a company to now you're providing the CRM for the company to use. Is that right?
That is correct. I went from the one to the other, and you could call it a sales manager, but I like to take it to the next level and just put the entire operation system on a CRM. Because think about it logically, you just said yourself, it's where the whole team can see everything on the
Right.
CRM, correct, Frankie? Well, end of day reports. End of the day, typically you have to tell the team, this is what I did all day, this is what happened, or during the day, or after a call, you've got a report. Now, being able to automate all of that, you're just getting rid of headache. Nobody's chasing sales reps. Sales reps aren't under pressure at the end of the day to do some reports. So it's not just having that CRM, it's about how do we set it up in such a way that the information's flowing. And that's kind of the trick. In the same way as, when we're doing sales calls, you don't just go, hi, how can I help? What's what? You've got a pre-prepared game plan for how to construct that conversation. Same as you on this podcast. We're not just
Hmm.
showing up saying, let's figure it out as we go. You've got a very clear plan of how we're going to do this thing. And that's how you want to do it. That's what I
Right.
bring to people.
That's good. So just to kind of give some insight to some of the entrepreneurs that might be watching, where do most people that you do these services for get their leads from? Is it mostly from paid ads, or how do they do that?
Me personally, or how do they do it?
The people you're working with generally.
People that I work with, it's a combination. Most of them are going to go with PPC, I'm thinking. They all have their own marketing teams. So when I'm working with someone, usually there's a healthy amount of lead flow, a healthy amount of book calls coming in, maybe pulling $50,000, $100,000 in cash every single month. And now they're at the point of, look, guys, do you want to double that, or do you want to keep messing around on systems? If you've
Yeah.
got $5,000, $10,000 a month in cash, awesome. I'm happy to come in there and try and double or triple that for you in more improved systems. So there's a bit of a variance. I find most people, though, some form of PPC, pay per click. I've had one person who did a whole email marketing setup, but yeah, pay per click seems to be
Yeah.
the way. But I
How
am
many
not a
how many
marketing
calls
expert.
would you consider a healthy amount a day someone would take, a closer would take, or would be on their calendar?
Like, let's call it an average 5.
Okay.
1 or 2 isn't really enough. Once you get on to 6 or 7, it gets a bit exhausting. And yeah, I have
So
done
I'm
13,
writing this
14
down.
back
So
to
you said a
back.
minimum of $5,000 or more ticket price, at least 5 appointments on the calendar a day, and closing anywhere from 20 to 30% of those. Is that right?
Correct. And 20% commission, let's call it. Often is 10%, but we can call it 20 for fun. Maybe we're on an awesome offer. And you can see how these things add up.
Awesome. And so now you're offering the actual CRM so they can manage everything in one place, and everybody can kind of have a centralized place to know where the status of a lead is, or where it is, on both ends. So how does that work now? Is that something that you guys you customize for each one, or in is it's a CRM that you kind of either white labeled or created yourself? Tell us more about it.
So it's a process. It's kind of like, think about it like sales training per se. I can give you a methodology, a codex, a basic outline of a script for how you're going to have that conversation. Then you got to modify it for your specific offer. It is the exact same thing with a CRM. First thing I'm always going to do, because I got my 4 Ds when I onboard people. D number 1 is design. We are going to have a 1.5 to 2 hour chat, and we are going to design your perfect sales operations. I didn't say your CRM. I said your sales operations. How do your sales guys like to do things? How does the HR people like to do things? Who likes to see what? What's going on with marketing? I want to understand what's your flow, what's your processes. Is it a 1 call close? Is it a 2 call close? Is there a setter team? Is there a closer team? So that's the first thing we're going to do. We're going to design your sales operations. Once I have that, then I'm going to develop a CRM around that. So most people ask me, Keith, what's your favorite CRM? And I'm kind of like, well, for what? I need to know what you need in order for me to actually specify a technology. If you're taking calls by phone, then what do you need Zoom for? You see what I'm getting at here? If you're more email centric, marketing centric, then you don't want a tool like Salesforce. You want a tool like HubSpot. It's going to be much better for that. So I don't tell people what CRM that they're going to be using. I may suggest it, but we need to actually hop on that call. And to be blunt, Frankie, a CRM is a CRM. The architecture is the
So
same.
you can work with a couple different ones, right? That's
Same as
good.
a mechanic working on a car. Doesn't really matter. An oil change is an oil change. They got four wheels, steering wheel. They're all going to get you from point A to point B. It's just, do you need a bus or do you need something fast?
Yeah, I don't know. Some of those mechanics cannot work on foreign ones for sure. Depends on their specialty, but I get what you're saying. So let's say someone is starting. Let's say they just got an offer out and they're starting to get some sales, and now they're going to
Yeah.
go into some ads and things like that. They haven't even got a sales team in place yet. Could you can you consult them the whole way, or they need to get a sales team first and then come see you?
So I have a group on Facebook and I'm happy to drop it. And in that group, I offer unlimited free advice. Like it's as simple as that. I got a lot of entrepreneurs in there. So you can ask me as much as you want 24/7, and I'll give you this is how we start.
Yeah, yeah.
I
You have
have
the link.
guides in there.
Drop it in the chat if you can. I'll
Yeah.
post it on the banner here so people can have it.
Now there we
And
go.
perfect, perfect.
And there's a load of guides in there. My advice to people that are just sort of getting started for the first time is definitely get yourself a CRM, and a basic CRM, not a spreadsheet. And the reason being is because you may not have many leads now, but wait a couple months and suddenly you got a couple hundred leads, maybe 1,000 leads, and you got to segment them, and you got to know who you followed up with and who not. And maybe you want to bring on a seller. If you haven't set up a basic CRM, then you're really in a bit of trouble at this point. So it is something you want to do, Frankie, from the beginning, but a basic CRM and then just focus on lead gen, lead gen, lead gen.
Yeah. So, but can you recommend a sales team or a remote sales team, or do you have those? Is that service you still include, or you just want them to kind of figure that out?
I know the industry like the back of my hand. So any of these questions, I got hours and hours of information I can send you. The question that you're asking me, though, are you asking about a CRM or a done for you service?
Yeah. So let's say someone is back to my hypothetical. They have an offer, they have a program, they're starting to do ads, so that means they're starting to get leads, but they have no sales team. Um, is that something you guys you offer as well, or you want to refer them to someone, or how do they handle that part?
Definitely one of those depends questions, but I'm 100% good to go with that. And I have a couple of clients that I set up their first CRMs as they were getting up and running, and I just hooked in a couple of recruiters that I know, handed them a couple of commission only closers, maybe a commission only manager, and you can get them as well to actually manage the setup.
Hmm.
So 100% I can do that. The hesitation is that if you're at that level that you need 5 or 6 super heavy hitters from the word go, I do know a couple of other done for you agencies, and we all work together. We all know each other. Everybody stays in their lane, but we all know each other.
Yeah, that's good. That's cool. So it could on the consulting side of this, you can help them with putting together the whole sales thing if they needed
Yeah,
to.
absolutely. The big differentiator, and I said it to you before, during, and after, and I'll keep saying it, is that there's plenty of CRM implementation guys. Like there's Pipedrive consultants, there's Close.com consultants, Active Campaign, Salesforce, HubSpot. I could go through them all, but the difference is those guys learn operations. Okay, they know how to build the best theoretical CRM that you can get. Me, I know the sales training. I'm building a system in line with how you've been trained so that you can actually do your sales processes the way you want to do them. And your CRM is your friend. You're not just wrestling with the thing. That's kind of where it's different with me. So you're asking me, Keith, can I get more people? Of course I can get more people.
Mm-hmm.
But first we got to build that process so that when we hire people, we can simply go, look, here's your CRM, here's your LMS, learning management, your onboarding training. Come on in. We got to get prepared before we bring them in.
Gotcha.
So I do
So
all of that with the
that would be
CRM.
the next step is getting that
A
process
CRM
figured out.
with me is not just a basic CRM bill. Like I'm going to do all your standard operating procedures, document them, video them, so that you want to take on 10, 20, 50, 100 people, go right ahead. We're good to go. We're automated.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. That's amazing. That's cool. Let me ask you this question as well. If someone is wanting to scale, I think I've heard you mention AI. Um, how integral is AI now in someone scaling their business or their offer or their coaching program?
If you know what you're doing, AI can be your best friend. And if you don't know what you're doing, you're just wasting your time and you'll get gibberish back. I think that the easiest way I can explain it to people is think of AI like a VA, a virtual assistant. If you give that virtual assistant perfect instructions on exactly what you want them to do, 9 times out of 10, they'll do exactly what you ask them to do, and it's all perfect. And
Mm-hmm.
Bob's your uncle, and everything's laughing. But if you ask your VA to, I don't know, come up with some magical sales strategy or give it some thought, like they're not going to be able to do it. And GPT, AI, Gemini, it's all the same. It's great at giving instructions, taking instructions, and it will do whatever you tell it to do. But if you be vague, like come up with a marketing plan or sort out my leads, it's not going to cut it. Like it can
Yeah.
automate. I'm using a couple of automation tools using JavaScript, like API integration, most people know of. I take it to the next level and hard code it. I don't know how to use JavaScript. I don't know how to code, haven't a clue, but GPT knows. So I tell it in plain English what I want. It gives me the code. I put the code in, bang, it works, and everybody's happy. That's what you can do with AI. You can sort of skip processes, but only if you're very clear what those
Yeah.
processes are.
And that's a part of your offering, right? You definitely recommend or
My
implement that.
offering is kind of all you can eat. So when I work with someone, I typically work with somebody annually, and it's sort of all you can eat. I build it. I gave you 4Ds. I spoke about the first two. I first help you design your perfect sales op, then develop it. Next, deploy. Deploy is usually 1 to 4 weeks. I make sure that everybody knows how they're using it. There's no problems. I optimize every little bit. And the final part is discover. And this discover phase is the fun phase. This is
Yeah.
every single week we're hopping on calls and we're going, where can we find an extra 2% on show rates? Where can we push those leads to get an extra 1 or 2 closes at the end of the week?
Mm-hmm.
So that's where it gets fun and exciting. And I got a team, developers, salespeople, implementation specialists. We're sort of on call 24/7. That's the service that I offer. Anyone
Yeah.
who just doesn't want the headache of worrying about a CRM, let us take care of that. You sell, we do our thing. Everybody's laughing.
Awesome. Well, my man, Keith's covered a lot, man. I know I asked some different questions, but I think some of the audience definitely wants to entertain this, but they need to kind of know where to go next, etc. So, anything else that you wanted to cover or make sure the audience know about?
Not really. The main thing is that if anybody wants to know more about CRMs, sales, operations, how we can get better and make more money, go to that Facebook group. Okay, groups/CRM clarity. Or if you'd rather just skip that, hop on a quick call with me one-on-one, then it's really easy for me to understand and meet you where you are, where you need to get to. I can give you that roadmap over a 30, 40-minute call. Whether you go and do that yourself, whether you want me and my team to do it, that's up to you. But I'm certainly more than happy to give anyone a quick roadmap.
Awesome. And they can reach out to you, looks like through your website. Is that right?
cfclosers.com. I put a lovely video, and at the bottom of that video, my calendar link is available. So I keep it open for anybody that wants to speak to me there or touch base with me on any of my social media. I'm only sharing Facebook because that's where I keep sort of everything,
Right.
because Facebook groups are super easy to work with.
Awesome. Well, my man, great knowledge, man. It sounds like you got a great passion and energy and great expertise in this area. I definitely want to stay connected to you as well. Stay put real quick, but thank you so much for being on the Be My Guest podcast today. I appreciate it. Just one moment and we'll get right back to you, okay?
My pleasure, Frankie.
All right. You've been watching Be My Guest podcast. Thanks for tuning in. If you want to be a guest on our podcast, go to BeMyGuestPodcast.com. That's BeMyGuestPodcast.com.